Welcome back to Night Mind, friends. And yes, we're still doing cabin fever dreams. It's still spring, and one video wasn't gonna cut it for me. Especially when we've got some wonderful, soul-touching, psychedelic, dark-humored projects out there just waiting for us. One such case, our adventure tonight, is a small production by an equally small and dedicated group of people led by artist Yara Asmar, which gained fast notoriety after uploading its first installment, Mr. Samuel's Teatime Stories, for good kids and confused adults. Yara Asmar wrote the following pinned comment in the wake of the unexpected popularity of the project. Thank you to everyone who took the time to watch and send in your thoughts. When we posted the video, we did not think it would reach as many people as it has now. We're a small team of artists and workers based in Beirut, Lebanon, who got together 2 years ago during a time that was quite dark for each of us, for different reasons. And working on this has brought us a lot of solace. We are truly touched to see it's also brought some comfort to some of you out there. When we got together to work on this, we had a very tiny budget from a small grant we received and decided to pour it into the set building. It took us a day to set up and 2 days to film the 4 parts. We were locked away from the world in this colored cell of our own creation, and it was as surreal as it was comforting. Every person who has played any role in the making of this film has poured a lot of heart and a lot of their inner world into it. Yara then went on to cite inspirations they've drawn from for Mr. Samuel's, as well as addressing the availability of its music. The message ends as follows. We are deeply grateful for your presence in this small world we built and hope that wherever you are, you can share the sadness with us for a moment, and that for a moment, we're not alone anymore. Hugs, the Mr. Samuel and Friends crew.
Oh, hello there. I wasn't expecting you.
You haven't come by in a while. I thought you'd forgotten all about this place.
But you always remember eventually, don't you? It's a pleasure to see your face. Welcome home. Welcome home.
Oh, no, Mr. Samuel. That's the project I just covered, although it's also quite colorful. Tonight, we're visiting your slice of reality that's also threatened by encroaching darkness. With only 4 installments, Mr. Samuel's Teatime Stories clocks in at just 28 minutes 20 seconds long. Incredibly easy to sit down and watch in one sitting, especially with the official playlist provided. You've also just seen that subtitles are baked right into the work. You won't ever have to question what's being said. This is a special treat, and for those of you who have been craving more work in the atmospheric potency of Wham City Comedy's experiences, this is going to deliver while striking some different chords. You're going to be confused, oddly comfortable and uncomfortable. You're going to worry and put your daily trivialities aside. You're going to think and wonder and feel and wish you weren't. Surreal, provoking, and somehow soothing. It's hard to describe before getting into proper discussion, but I think it's fine to give you Yara Asmar's description. In a wonky universe set within the fake walls of an old abandoned children's TV show, Mr. Samuel and his friends, peculiar, ugly puppets navigating the strange thing that is time, attempt to make sense of it all through stories, songs, and arduous loops of nonsensical chores. A film in 4 parts. French anarchist Laurent seeks colored cells were the first use of modern art as a method of psychotechnic torture. The cells were as inspired by ideas of geometric abstraction and surrealism as they were by avant-garde art theories on the psychological properties of colors. The walls, which were curved and covered with mind-altering patterns of cubes, squares, straight lines, and spirals which utilize tricks of color, perspective, and scale to cause mental confusion and distress. With an emphasis on set building, the disintegrating world of Mr. Samuel manifests as a colored cell through a set that is falling apart. And I believe that's all the intro you need to give this a shot. If it isn't, then I'll tell you right now if you're interested that you should, because this video does not include a walkthrough summary. It's an after-piece examination that trusts your familiarity with the experience. There are Nightmind videos for walkthrough explorations and Nightmind videos for post-experience examinations. This video is the second kind. After all, Mr. Samuel's Teatime Stories is under half an hour in total. That's far less time than most of my own videos. It's very easy to sit down, experience its full impact, and come back for discussion of the art. I've put the official playlist in the video description and pinned comment, and I'll even remember the info card YouTube has, which should be appearing now. You've got just under half an hour, don't you? Please, go watch Mr. Samuel's Teatime Stories. It supports Yara Asmar and the team who made this. You absolutely will enjoy and feel the project more by first-hand viewing. And truly, this video will not attempt a walkthrough summary as I do with long unfiction projects that warrant it. There aren't any jump scares or difficult moments for those of you sensitive to horror who enjoy it only by having me as a walk-along guide. You can safely watch Mr. Samuel's Teatime Stories, and then we'll discuss it together. Go on now. The tea's nearly done steeping. Ah, there you are. Back again. I knew you'd be back. Though you look just a bit emotional, if you don't mind my saying so. Hard not to be, isn't it? This is a special project. Even if you don't know in exact terms what it's about, you feel it. You do know. It isn't just weird or abstract, not simply some atmospheric experience. This hits you in places that are understood without words. There are quite a few ways you can read Mr. Samuel's Teatime Stories, but before we get into any discussion of meanings, let's praise the craft and skill that went into this, starting with the sound. Music, music, music. What atmospheric music, even when it's subtly sliding off beats. It of course evokes a children's show, which is the premise, but in a way that echoes, giving us a sense of space in this void, the eerie emptiness. Mr. Samuel's home sounds, looks, and feels like a place out of time. It brings with it little hints of the regular activity that used to go on here, that children's entertainment soundscape. Once in a while, you'll hear something slightly whimsical, now grown sad, or a touch of Foley related to characters, like a knock at the door before entry that goes unanswered.
Where will I live?
You can't just build your house in people's bones. Besides, I need my bones.
Oh. Okay.
Was it Mr. Snail Mail letting himself in? Or someone we'll never meet? At one point, I heard wind chimes attached to nothing and not explained. And the songs. Haunting, a bittersweet kind of comfort, and never entirely staying on pace, but in a way that's almost charming. No wonder viewers asked Yara Asmar to put the music somewhere to listen outside the videos. The set design is simple, but so effective in its allure, and as the series goes on, we really get to enjoy the way it unravels and slips into darkness. Even the end, with just 3 elements, is so striking. And for a moment, we witness the way it's changed over time, ending in a position just a moment or two away from disappearing into the void. Puppetry and costume design are delightful. Mr. Samuel's suit is always a pleasant sight, very much the kind of outfit for a kindly older man in a show like this. And the puppets are the perfect blend of attractive and off-putting, providing that cute surrealism, especially in Gloomy Madeline. All these elements come together to give the impression of a children's show losing its grip on understanding of the world, or one that's been left to sink into darkness. The atmosphere and psychological impact of such a construction brings to mind the description by Yara Asmar of the colored cells and their history of use. This is a whimsical and unsettling place, maybe even cruel in its formation. It's so rare and so special when we find anything that grants us access to the emotional pockets of fringe reality that Mr. Samuels evokes. In particular, we may consider that semi-conscious mental liminality of the light fugue state experienced when waking in the middle of the night. Finding a familiar world suddenly feels different. But what exactly is happening here? And who are we in Mr. Samuel's home? This is where interpretation can vary from viewer to viewer, and while its themes and elements can be clues to an intended understanding delivered by the team who brought us the experience, it feels as if Mr. Samuel's Teatime Stories has multiple readings that are accurate. I do welcome you to head into the comments and express what you felt in the viewing. I'll share what I came away with. Mr. Samuels, as I understand it, has an overlapping of themes dealing with confused adults. Remember, it's not just for good kids. We, in our position as visitors to this place, are always welcomed back. And in Mr. Samuel's words, after all this time, it's still us. Mr. Samuel can always count on us to be back, even when we forget. And we forget this place every time. But when we're back, we remember. We never really leave this place. We never really could. Good kids usually grow up and find themselves to be confused adults, asking where the happiness has gone, where the restful and energetic days slipped away to. It's easy at times, isn't it, to come back to a familiar and happier place, so simple and understandable in its presentation of the adulthood that was supposed to be inherited. It was simple once, looking through a TV screen. Not so often now. Not until we visit that place again. And when we do, when the safety of Mr. Samuels is revived, what do you think some of the good kids who grew up do?
Dear Mr. Samuel, that's me. Time is confusing and I don't know what's going on. How do I stop the horrors? I am terrified. Please make it stop. Sounds like it's time for
Mr. Samuel's tips for good children and confused adults.
Are you feeling confused?
Is time getting all muddy and smudged?
Well, here's what you have to do. Make your bed. Every day, you should make your bed.
Why?
Because it's important. Now, gotta shout at the clocks, because sometimes they get silly.
Confused advice from an older adult than the one asking, when it was supposed to be a solid answer from a reliable, comforting figure. Definitely not helpful, and yet, time and time again, we come back, finding things slipping further away, but keep returning. Because as Mr. Samuel knows, we never really leave this place. Never really could. And no matter how often we forget, eventually we remember. It's hard to not feel at home navigating life. And when you can't find it, everywhere is hell. Can any confused adults be blamed for trying to go back to the place that did feel like home? The issues that used to be fun to explore and explain for good kids are now anxious and sad for the adults who come back. Home, time, death, and loss of freedom. Is this what happens to the good things from childhood left behind? Do they just sink into darkness as the years go on? Did a lot of bad time create this? Maybe it's not so much about trying to restore a sense of home lost for us, though. Maybe it's Mr. Samuel and his sense of home slowly unraveling and his state of confusion that provokes our sadness. Throughout the series, we see the evidence that Mr. Samuel is a confused adult too, and ideas about the abstract nature of home, time, the sun, and the inevitability of death occupy his consciousness when we meet with him. Dr. Delight died of old age, and Mr. Samuel is old too, time no longer on his side. His confusion in several discussions is evident. His answers to complicated things are simple, even for a kid's show. Reality, his reality, unravels a little more each time we visit, and the way he talks with his friends seems like the way an old confused man may talk with a very specific set of people while residing in a home that doesn't feel right. The dementia or Alzheimer's reading is very clear to understand, especially once given a very important clue in the final episode. Gloomy Madeline is gone, but her puppeteer isn't, showing up to operate another character. As the clock, she's been able to track time, But even that matter of trusting Madeline with time is difficult for Mr. Samuel. Altogether, she seems like a secret handler or assistant. The idea of a caretaker in a nursing home, having menial conversations or entertaining the confused aging inhabitants who insist on things like shouting at the clocks to keep them in line. And seen in that light, a new understanding occurs. The constant surprise in Mr. Samuel and even Miss Madeline that we keep coming back. It's a heavy toll for anyone who ends up in a nursing home and their family members to deal with the matter of visitation. Long stretches of time can occur in which no one visits. And if the family does visit, will it be remembered? Will it even be meaningful? Is the person visited going to be all there or more there than before? Will it just be another series of questions about where they are, or protests about what they want and where they want to go? There are things that always seem to help. Certain memories, music that they loved and will immediately act in recognition of. But the condition makes itself known through circular discussions, nonsensical questions, dead-end talks. Mr. Samuel wants to go, but he doesn't know where. He talks to people when his visitors aren't around and can't explain who he's talking to. He can't remember where the sun goes, even if it's around. He gets a little frustrated when he can't answer questions for himself. His friends, aging just as he is, are dying. Given enough time, he will join them. And even through the confusion, he knows this. Reality falls away. Time goes on. The confusion reaches a peak. The darkness closes in. The idea suggested all along of a colorful prison that results in psychological torture is finally understood. A disorder, taking memories and surety and leaving only a void. Over the credits for the finale, we have our only major musical repetition besides the intro, the funeral song. Mr. Samuel knows the end is near, and it seems he knows that we know. It's not just Mr. Samuel who's going to leave his home. In our position, trying to come back time and again to a place we called home as good kids, are we actually ready to let him go? What do the confused adults do when the only adult who had all the answers has become confused? And what do they do when the comfort of his presence goes too? We gather as a party and share the sadness for a moment. And for a moment, we're not alone anymore. The team who created Mr. Samuel's Teatime Stories brought us a truly special work of art. Surreal, darkly humorous, comforting, haunting, bittersweet, beautiful, and painful. This is a fever dream we didn't know we needed to experience. Thank you, all of you, for your efforts, dedication, and loving performances. Thanks to all of you for watching too, and to all of my supporters on Patreon, who make it possible to bring you awareness of more projects like Mr. Samuel's Teatime Stories, and to publish listings of new and undiscovered unfiction projects and subversive artwork on the Nightmind Index. You can support the mission of Nightmind by joining the Patreon for as little as $2 a month. It truly goes a long way, and I'm deeply grateful. Thanks as well to everyone who joined me in live streams to watch Mr. Samuel's Teatime Stories for the first time. I actually have the VOD for the first 3-episode exploration on my VOD channel, Nocturne Astraline, in a double feature with a cool puppetry and stop-motion project, Maple Underground. There are plenty more VODs available right now too, including a tour of the Mystery Flesh Pit National Park with special office guest, Shia Bun.
You know, Shia, this design is a technological marvel. They really fucked up here.
Yeah, there's no base.
Exactly. I knew you'd catch it. There it is, up top.
Yeah. That's gonna get lost. I mean,
that is in, and then it's not getting out.
Ooh,
well,
that's scary.
Enjoy your trip to the hospital.
Cabin Fever Dreams continues on Nightmind on YouTube and on Twitch, and I'd love to have you there for more live investigations and all the other fun we get up to. That's all for tonight, everyone. Thanks for joining me in the dark again this evening. There are more fever dreams for us to enjoy as spring enters full bloom. So if you've enjoyed your time here, subscribe to keep the trip going. Once more, I'm Nick Nocturne, and like an old friend, you'll be seeing me again real soon. Until next time, dream deep and sleep tight.